Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another video where we talk about levels and see whether or not we like them. And today's video topic is about hated levels that I and you like. Basically, when there's a level that receives some sort of backlash at one point in time, however, you and I personally have never really seen the problem of the level that much. As usual, I asked you guys for levels for this topic specifically in a YouTube post that I made. And just to note, even though these are other people's suggestions, most of the things I say are my opinions. So if you don't agree with them, then more power to you. But before we go with your suggestions, let me talk about my example first. Scarlet Surge by Incendium. Listen, I've never had a problem with gauntlet levels in general. I think most of the level selections are fine, except for like maybe a few. And I know a lot of people tend to dislike gauntlet levels, but for some reason Scarlet Surge really gets into people's nerve. A lot of the main criticisms I heard for Scarlet Surge is that it's either buggy, boring, or the decoration is not that good. Well, I can't really speak on the buggy part because I didn't encounter any bugs when I first played it. I do want to comment a bit about the boring part. To me, it didn't really feel boring, it felt more like an adventure. Yes, the gameplay isn't like the speediest thing ever, but that's kind of what I like about it. The dark atmosphere the level gives off makes me want to traverse the level more, as if I'm discovering something in a dark cave. Maybe this is a hot take, but I think some Geometry Dash players need to learn this thing called patience. I don't know, just try and maybe play a slow level for once. And as for the decoration, even though I will admit it's not like the most complex thing ever, hell, it's a 1.9 level. But I don't know, I thought it looked pretty cool, especially the time that it was made. It was pretty impressive and gives off a nice charm and atmosphere. I know I use the word atmosphere a lot, but trust me, some level just gives off a certain atmosphere. And to all the people that said, oh, this isn't good for the epileptics. Yes, maybe. But you know what? I think epileptics have a skill issue. In fact, if you're an epileptic watching this right now, what I want you to do, I was informed by some group of people to maybe not finish what I was going to say to avoid a lawsuit. So I will in fact not say it and keep me and the epileptic safe. So yeah, I think Scarlet Surge is a fine level on its own, especially when there's comparatively worse levels in the gauntlet, especially now. Well, with that out of the way, let's see what you guys have to offer. I just realized like maybe half of these are gauntlet levels, so bear with me. Abyss of Darkness. Even though this level has some really terrible gameplay, I think it actually somewhat fits the level, and I think AOD tries to present itself as this extremely scary, edgy, impossible level, and the gameplay being so scary looking and terrible to play makes it weirdly amazing to watch. Yeah, I get what you mean here. I will say I still maybe don't necessarily like the level, but I do think it's a bit overhated. I do want to kind of start off with a bit of criticism. For a level called Abyss of Darkness, it is a bit too colorful. I think I would have preferred it if they stuck with a black and red color scheme or maybe a gray color scheme. Will it make the level a bit dull? Yes, but come on, it's called Abyss of Darkness. But other than that, I think the level is just fine at best. The theming is actually pretty well executed, even with the whole color scheme criticism that I just said. The level does a pretty well job in executing its edgy theming. And it especially fits with the fact that this level used to be an impossible level. So you gotta make it as menacing as possible. And I know the level is like infuriatingly slow for most of the time, but to this level's defense, the song in itself is also really slow, even at the drop part. And come on, how can you hate this end screen? Like, this goes hard. So yeah, overall, Abyss of Darkness might not be my favorite level ever, but I do note that it is a bit overhated in the community. For me, I would say Magmatic Sanctuary by Radiation V2. Other players were hating on the drop part due to its unexpected speed changes, but in my experience, I found this part fun. Those speed changes literally fit the energy of the level and it perfectly executes the intensity of the song. Overall, I really like this level, not just for the whole drop part, but the whole level itself because of its execution. 100% agree with this one. Oh my god, Magmatic Sanctuary got so much flack when people first played it in the Fire Gauntlet. Just to be sure, I'm talking specifically about the old Magmatic Sanctuary. People kept saying about like how this level is too hard or the unstable speed changes are too annoying. But really, I find it so much of a non-issue. The level might seem hard at first, but once you replay it, you realize that it's really just another 6 or 7 star gameplay. And I have to talk about those unstable speed changes. Yes, it did caught me off guard at first, but once I take like 2 practice runs, I realized how much of a non-issue it was. People keep saying that the unstable speed changes makes the level a bit unpredictable, but like, it still syncs to the song. And it's not like it changes the gameplay all that much from my experience, because most of these speed changes were in places where you don't really need to do much. I'm not saying this is like the most fun level ever, but I keep hearing people say that this is the bane of the Fire Gauntlet's existence, and I don't say this very lightly, nor do I say it very often. But I do think that this is a skill issue. And in turn, the level got updated to what I think is a much more inferior version. It didn't ruin the level, but it's noticeably, for me at least, a lot weaker than the original. Though I will say that most of the problems I have with the update is that Radiation made certain gameplay updates to parts that were not really a problem in the original, like that UFO part that added the pink orbs. And you know, if it feels like the right thing to do for Radiation to update the level, then kudos to them. But if it were me, I would definitely just keep the original version of the level, as I think it's a bit more fun than the update. Sidestep, the gameplay is actually pretty fun and satisfying once you learn it, and it's not as buggy as people say. It just has a few awkward spots. Might be a little too hard for Easy Demon, but it's still a solid level and definitely doesn't deserve all the backlash that it gets. Yep, I've had a lot of fun with Sidestep. In fact, at one point in time, it's actually one of my favorite demons ever. I do somewhat agree that the level is a bit too hard for Easy Demon, as I think this has almost the same difficulty as Mechanical Showdown, but it is still a fun level to beat. I'm actually quite surprised at how much people didn't really like Sidestep, especially when I think there are worse levels in the Demon Gauntlet. I'm looking at you, Vibration. But maybe that's because people had a hard time with Sidestep. So you know what? Here's some tips and tricks to pass Sidestep. Number 1, all of the orbs are buffer clicks. Number 2, the duel is actually a lot more symmetrical than you think. But besides that, I think Sidestep is a good learning point for a lot of Geometry Dash players, as I think this is the level that can teach you quick thinking. With a lot of Geometry Dash levels being fast and requires you to do some quick thinking, especially with the demons, I think Sidestep is a nice stepping stone into that. In fact, Sidestep might be some people's first experience with flow gameplay, and that's another reason why I think this is like a good stepping stone to a lot of people for playing harder levels and develop some more quick thinking skills. So if you still haven't gotten past Sidestep in the Demon Gauntlet, do me a favor and try and do so. I promise you that it's gonna boost your skill up a bit. Ado, I really enjoyed the electrodynamics type ship and the 1.9 deco. Also, the music sync in the beginning is amazing. Okay, Ado is pretty interesting to me because I think it has grown on me recently. While not my favorite Zobros level ever, it has definitely moved up from being the worst, considering that I now have 2 competitors for that. I used to think that this level was pretty inconsistent in its gameplay, especially in the UFO parts. However, replaying it now, it's actually not that bad. I found a lot of the parts to be pretty consistent, and I know most of this level is mainly straight fly, but I thought it was still pretty fun to do so. And in fact, it's kind of satisfying at some points. I still don't like that one part with the gravity portals though. I think that's still annoying. I also don't like that one UFO part with the, again, gravity portals, but you know, just because there are 2 parts that are bad doesn't mean the whole level is bad. And while the decoration may not be the most eye-catching from all of the Zobros levels, I actually thought the effects made the level much more interesting. I actually quite like the sort of equalizer effect in the drop part. And come on, the song is a banger. Probably one of the best songs that Zobros has ever used, next to like Robotic Nightmares and Final Battle. But overall, to those of you who thought that Ado was iffy just like me back then, I encourage you guys to maybe check it out again. It's not that bad, and also not that hard. Honestly, Generation Retro, I actually pretty much liked the deco, and I think it was very well made for its time. The gameplay though, I wouldn't say it's horrible like most people say, but it's kind of bad and in some parts cool. Okay, I feel like I need to address this whole Generation Retro thing. I'm pretty sure most people's negative opinions on Generation Retro was because of that one Colin video. And just let me preface by saying this, I'm pretty sure that video is mostly a joke. In fact, I'm pretty sure Colin said so himself that he doesn't hate Generation Retro all that much. And this is also a bit of a problem in the GD community, is that some people can form their own opinions. Listen, I'm sorry to say this, but I think some people just take things at face value. Even though I keep forgetting to do it nowadays, this is why I say, like, if you don't agree with it, then more power to you. Because I want people to form their own opinions. And while I agree that Generation Retro has its flaws, it's so far from the worst Geometry Dash level as many people said. I think the theme it was going for is executed fine. It's not the best execution of the retro theming ever, but for what it is, it's fine. And some of the bugs are so like easily avoidable. The gameplay's not bad. I think it's just average at best. Not the most fun thing ever, but also not the worst thing ever. You can mostly sight read the level. It's a 4-star. So yeah, but I don't blame Colton for the whole hate on Generation Retro thing. I think people have had this narrative for a bit too long now. It's at most an average level. Dynamic on track by Creeper's Gold. The gameplay isn't that bad. Okay, hold on. I only half agree with you on this one. Yes, I do agree that the gameplay in itself isn't that bad. It's mostly average Geometry Dash gameplay. You can beat it in like 4 attempts if this is your first time seeing the level. There will be speed changes going up to 3 times speed. But again, it's not that bad. You can mostly sight read it. However, it's the everything else that I have a problem with. If this level was the same as the original with some minor gameplay tweaks, I would have had no problem with Dynamic on Track. However, the creator decided to update the level. Oh, what's the update? Is it fixing some of the bugs in the gameplay? Yes, but there's more. The creator decided to add some rants in the level. I believe those rants were against jump indicators and straight fly and buff this. Which, okay, the problem here is not necessarily the ranting part. I don't care if you decided to rant about like the community or some things like that. Because truth be told, there are problems. But I don't think this is an effective way to do it. I think a more effective way is to just make another level ranting about the problems, instead of updating one of your most popular levels. And the way it rants is just so ineffective. Like, I get it's trying to be satirical, but like spamming the word straight fly and arrows really doesn't help your point. Honestly, a bit of a shame, because I don't mind the level, but because of the update, I kinda don't like the level more because of it. Forsaken Neon, well, even though it is true that there are some bugs and annoying parts, the level is overall pretty enjoyable as a challenge, and the gameplay was also unique for 1.9 levels. Like in that part where the ship is changed the speed over and over, the 50% cube slope jump, and it just feels unique for 1.9 level. And the decoration also not that bad, and the timing is awesome. I could see why many people hate it, but overall it's a pretty good level. My thoughts exactly. When I made my top 10 favorite levels ever for my 1K special, I was actually surprised that some people were actually confused that Forsaken Neon is one of the levels included. And while it's not in my top 10 anymore, I still think this is a pretty solid level. And when I heard that people say that the level was kind of buggy, I assuming that they meant about the ball part. But like, if you take the chance to actually learn how the part works, it's really not that bad. It's pretty straightforward. In fact, that's not even the worst part of the level. The worst part is the wave before it. And the gameplay is also pretty unique, especially the one ship part with the speed changes and the cube with the slopes. I will say that the pink orb double click in the cube part was a bit weird, but like Geometry Dash is a game about trial and error. Once you figure out what you did wrong, you're good to go. It's not that bad. I highly recommend you guys to just try and beat Forsaken Neon. Down base, the level is always seen as an ugly 2.0 mess of a level with terrible gameplay. Some people even say it should have never been updated, but when I actually decided to beat it, it was great. Yeah, there were some things, but the level itself plays very well. It's pretty consistent and the song is catchy. Okay, I actually want to focus more on the ugly 2.0 mess of a level. As for the gameplay, listen, I can't lie, it's kind of rough. I didn't have a lot of fun with the gameplay when I played it through practice mode. Also, there are just some questionable transitions. But decoration was, I actually think this is one of the more cooler Nine Circles levels, mainly due to its theming. What's interesting about Down Base is that it's trying to do a construction theming for a Nine Circles level. And especially for a time, I actually haven't seen something like it before. A lot of 9 circles levels that were made in 1.9 to 2.0 were mainly just a normal 9 circles level with no theming and the same formula. There are maybe some exceptions like solar circles, but for the most part, that's just it. And I appreciate that Downwards actually tried to do something else besides that. I especially like the part where the background is all gray and there are some construction lines for the decoration. So yeah, overall, I think the gameplay is still a bit rough in my opinion, but I do think that decoration-wise, it's one of the more cooler ones in the 9 Circles catalog. Well, that's the end of the video. Do you guys want a sequel to this topic specifically? Let me know in the comments below, and maybe I'll try and make another community post with this topic. And if you want to participate in this type of video, make sure to subscribe since I post these type of community posts every once in a while. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe since I'm trying to hit 7k by the end of the year. Oh, and if you want to support me even further, make sure to check me out on VJ where you can commission me a headshot, half body, full body, a banner, or a thumbnail. That's all I have for you today. I'll see you all later. Bye bye.